just now you stood beside him and would not allow him to be dishonored by the generals, now that he is dead. They wanted to expose his body to the elements and disgrace his name forever.
Theater of War is a project that presents readings of my translations of plays by Sophocles to military audiences as a catalyst for town hall discussions about the seen and unseen wounds of war, what has and hasn't changed over the last 2,500 years about the human experience of war.
I do not see friends and enemies as mutually exclusive.
You will show us to be cowards today.
No, I'll show us to be fair and just.
Are you advising me to allow this corpse to be buried?
Yes, I am, for I will one day die and hope that my body receives the same treatment.
When Theater of War approached us with their proposal, we saw immediately that this was an important and urgent example of our work in action.
We are performing 5 scenes from Sophocles Ajax. In all the plays, you see these young characters struggling with these complex ethical and moral positions. There is no more appropriate place in some ways to be performing Theater of War with this diverse group of student veterans and students and faculty than here at Columbia, and we're really excited.
So I've done the Broadway show, right? Probably entertained people at the most. Did it promote dialogue, discussion? Probably not. But then I've done something like Theater of War, where I know that I could walk away and conversations will be told or spoken and engaged in for the next couple of weeks, maybe months, maybe it'll affect some change in some way.
It really is one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. I'm not just in the theater, but I mean ever.
Basically, the reason I got involved in theater was to be able to do something that was going to affect people like in a very real way, and it seems to start a conversation that needs to be had.
When we started talking to others in the Columbia University campus, there was no department or center or concern at the university that was not in some way tied in to this project.
To those of us who love the classics, there's nothing revolutionary about listening to a story written by Sophocles and relating to it with our guts and our hearts. But there's something revolutionary about empowering those who've never really come into contact with Sophocles to be the ones who are speaking.
The real experience starts after the play has been read, and we have people like sharing and opening up, and all I can do at that point is just stay quiet and listen, because they all say something that I really need to hear.
My husband's done 4 combat tours, and I've been with him for 3 of them, and he doesn't talk about them often, and for me, I want to be involved. I know that he's going through pain, but I can't fix it for him.
For he always told his men that crying was for women and cowards. Tired from all the tears, he now rests in his mess, strangely silent, refusing food or water, planning to do some terrible thing.
You know, as my role as a wife, I could connect with Tecmessa the most on stage. I do think it's important to share the family's perspective, because a lot of times that gets lost, but I think it's central to the soldier too.
No matter how long you live, the warrior type mentality, no matter how strong you think you are, whether it's old age or other things, you will find that you cannot adhere to Ajax view throughout your life. 2,500 years till now, there is still a bonding between warriors who have dealt with that, and you can be a warrior in many different ways and many different avocations, but that the same tensions and challenges are resident, and the importance of getting some type of aid and understanding, because there's always going to be the gulf between those who have been in a combat situation and recognize the skills that are necessary to survive that, even perhaps wounded, and those who really cannot comprehend it. And that's a very difficult breach to overcome.
Theater of War and Sophocles' plays are beautifully crafted, I think, to help us appreciate the humanity of people doing otherwise on things that don't make sense.
I think it helps other soldiers who aren't yet ready to tell their story, to hear that there's other people that are in pain and having issues as well that are similar to their own. And then for the civilians that haven't gone to war and experienced those things, it helps them to understand the soldiers better.
It made the connection that it doesn't just stop at the soldier. The pain can trickle through, it can accumulate, and it also, I think, brought to light the inner cognitive dissonance that a lot of these young men and women have to deal with.
When I first left the service, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, how to relate, what exactly my military career and serving as, a Green Beret would really relate into the civilian world. Like, how does that translate? Where do I go? And what type of honor, the things that I once knew and once strived for changed overnight. And it's a shock. It's a deep shock as far as where to go from there.
You skilled sailors who joined me on the open seas to row against our enemies. You are the only men who can help me now.
The conversations between veterans and non-veterans are very important. They're rich. They're opportunities to grow from both sides. I mean, as I said, I had a hard time in my own transition, and I think that I can share a lot of the perspective that I got overseas, but I also want to reacclimate to the civilian world. So creating these opportunities, and the theater of war is a perfect one where the military side comes out, the civilian side comes out, and we can have a conversation about not just the transition, but the differences of points of view, and then hopefully at the end of the day, we understand each other better.
I told the story during the performance of the concern of my Marines that I would be unsafe at Columbia, given the front page of Stars and Stripes as it was delivered sometime in, I guess, April or May of '68 is what it boiled down to. And I happen to know a number of recent vets who are involved at Columbia in the business school, some in the law school, and what have you, and they are so appreciative and complimentary about the reception they've received and how they've been interspersed and made comfortable at Columbia today.
No matter what your position is on the current conflicts, as human beings, I feel like it's incumbent upon us and it's morally obligatory for us to think of ways to help those who've served our country to heal. And so that's what Theater of War is about.